A man stormed into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, anger radiating from every step as he prepared to prove a police officer wrong. Clutching a crumpled citation like a personal wound, he stood tense before the bench. The room fell silent. Everyone sensed this case would be different. When Judge Frank Caprio pressed play on the dashcam video, the room held its breath. The screen flickered, the sound crackled. And within seconds, the story that Daniel Russo thought he knew began to unravel. What started as a small ticket would soon grow into something far larger, a lesson about pride, kindness, and the power of a quiet heart. Only 4% of viewers of stories like this are subscribed. Friends, if you believe that true justice means understanding before judgment, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. He thought the dashcam would save him. He never imagined it would humble him. It was an early morning in Providence Municipal Court. Outside, a light rain tapped against the tall windows, blurring the city into shades of silver. Inside, the room buzzed with the low hum of voices, people clutching envelopes and tickets, whispering hopes for mercy. Judge Frank Caprio entered with the warmth of a man who had seen every kind of mistake and still believed in people. His robe swayed as he took his seat, offering the same gentle smile he gave every morning. One by one, he greeted the faces before him, not as cases but as neighbors. The clerk's voice broke through the murmurs. City of Providence versus Mr. Daniel Russo. A man in his mid-30s stood, his shoulders squared but weary. His knuckles were white around a folded ticket. To one side, the issuing officer waited quietly, hands behind his back, posture calm. Most in the gallery expected another routine fine, maybe a small lecture about vehicle maintenance. None of them expected a story that would leave the courtroom silent, hearts heavy, eyes bright with unexpected tears. To most, it was only a broken tail light. To those who witnessed it, it became a mirror, showing what grace looks like when justice wears a human face. Daniel Russo looked like a man who carried his work home on his skin. Grease stained his hands, his nails short, his eyes framed by the fatigue of long shifts. He was a mechanic by trade, a single father by circumstance, and a man whose pride often stood where patience should have been. 2 weeks earlier, he'd been driving home from a late job when flashing lights appeared behind him. The officer told him his taillight was out. Daniel had snapped that he already knew and was fixing it that weekend. When the officer handed him the ticket, he'd felt anger flood through him. To him, it wasn't about safety. It was about being targeted. Another man with calloused hands treated like a criminal. He told the judge, "Your Honor, I work hard. 2 jobs, I barely see my kid. I don't have time to argue with some cop trying to meet a quota." The courtroom stayed still. Behind the frustration in his voice, there was something else. Tiredness, maybe even shame. Daniel's car, an aging sedan, was his lifeline. It carried him to work at the garage in the mornings and to the grocery store with his son on weekends. It rattled and groaned, but it was his. Every dent told a story. Every repair a reminder that he could still keep things running on his own. He'd fixed engines that refused to live and coaxed rusted bolts free with stubborn determination. But he hadn't yet learned to loosen his own resentment. The officer stood quietly at the side of the courtroom. He didn't interrupt, didn't correct. His face stayed calm, almost compassionate, which somehow made Daniel's anger burn hotter. Neither man knew that this small clash, a bulb, a ticket, a few harsh words, was about to grow into something neither would forget. Within the next few minutes, that anger would meet a truth powerful enough to humble an entire room. Judge Caprio folded his hands. "Mr. Russo," he said gently, "did you say some things to the officer that morning?" Daniel hesitated. "Yeah," he admitted after a moment. "I lost my cool. But he was rude first." A ripple of discomfort moved through the courtroom. The officer said nothing, his calm presence almost disarming. Caprio leaned forward, voice low but firm. "You know, sometimes when life feels unfair, we start seeing enemies where there are only people trying to do their jobs." Daniel crossed his arms. "With respect, Judge, some people are out to get you. That's how it is for folks like me." The judge studied him quietly, the way one might study a man standing at the edge of a cliff built from his own pride. "Let's see if the video can help us," Caprio said. "Perhaps it'll clear the air." Daniel's lips curved into a smirk. "Perfect. Let's see what really happened." The clerk dimmed the lights. Murmurs floated through the gallery. On the screen, Daniel's car appeared under the morning sun. The siren lights reflected red and blue off its dull paint. His voice burst from the speakers, sharp, impatient, angry. "I told you I'll fix it this weekend. Don't you have real crimes to chase?" The officer's tone, calm and measured, carried through the speakers. "Sir, it's a safety issue. Please just sign here." Daniel's reply came back like a slap. Yeah, whatever. Have fun wasting taxpayer money." Then the video ended. Daniel gestured at the screen. "See? Told you." He didn't care about anything I said. Judge Caprio didn't respond. Instead, he nodded to the clerk. "Play the rest." The lights dimmed again. The sound of rain against the courthouse windows mixed with the faint static from the video. Friends watching at home, if you've ever said something in anger that you later wished you could take back, hit that like button, because what comes next is a lesson we all need to hear. The room waited, expecting nothing more than a traffic stop replayed from another angle. None of them knew the next minute of footage would change the tone of the entire courtroom. The dashcam rolled on past the moment Daniel drove away. The officer remained on the roadside for a few seconds, watching the car disappear into the traffic. Then he exhaled, a slow, heavy breath that sounded almost like sadness. He reached for his own wallet, thumbed through a few folded bills, and glanced at the taillight again, still glowing faintly on the screen. The video cut to the officer walking through the door of a small auto parts store. The timestamp showed it was only minutes after the stop. He spoke briefly with the clerk, handed over cash, and left holding a small box, a replacement bulb. The courtroom grew still. The final clip showed the officer returning to the same street later that morning. He parked behind Daniel's car, now sitting in the driveway of a modest house. He placed the box on the windshield under the wiper, paused for a moment, then walked back to his cruiser. The video froze. Silence filled the room. Daniel's shoulders slumped. The pride that had carried him through every sentence dissolved in the quiet. Judge Caprio's voice was softer now. "Officer, would you explain what we just saw?" The man cleared his throat. "His car was old," he said. "He told me he couldn't afford to fix it. I didn't want him getting rear-ended. I figured maybe if I bought the bulb myself, he'd change it before someone got hurt." A gasp spread across the benches. Someone whispered, "He paid for it himself." The officer nodded once. "It was just a few dollars." Caprio leaned back, eyes glistening. "You know, officer, you just reminded everyone here what that badge is supposed to mean." He turned toward Daniel. "Sometimes the people we think are against us are the ones quietly helping us behind the scenes." Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. He blinked hard, his voice cracking when it finally surfaced. I didn't know." "I'm sorry," the officer smiled faintly. "We all have bad days." A woman in the back sniffled. A man rubbed his eyes. Even the clerks behind the bench stood a little taller, as though something heavy had just been lifted. In that moment, the anger Daniel had carried for weeks toward the system, toward authority, maybe even toward his own luck, melted into something entirely different: gratitude. Judge Caprio let the silence breathe. Then he said quietly, "Mr. Russo, when you came in here today, you were sure you'd been treated unfairly. Maybe life has been unfair to you in some ways, but sometimes life sends us reminders that compassion still exists if we care to look." Daniel nodded, voice barely above a whisper. "You're right, Your Honor," the judge smiled. "I think both of you showed something important today. One showed patience, the other showed humility. That combination might just fix more than any taillight ever could." The audience exhaled together, like a single shared breath. The moment ended not with gavel or judgment, but with a handshake, Daniel extending his hand first, the officer meeting it without hesitation. In that gesture, all the noise of their earlier conflict vanished. It was two people recognizing one another as human again. Judge Caprio leaned forward, his tone turning firm but kind. "Mr. Russo, the fine for this violation is $45. But today I'm not going to fine you. Instead, I'm asking you to take that same amount and donate it to the Providence Auto Care Fund, our local program that helps low-income families keep their cars safe." Daniel's eyes widened. "Absolutely, Judge, I'll do that today." Caprio nodded. "Good. Consider it your way of passing the kindness forward." The courtroom broke into quiet applause. Even the officer smiled. As Daniel left the podium, the tension that had wrapped around his shoulders seemed to fall away. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean new. News of the hearing spread quickly. Someone in the audience had recorded the moment on their phone. Within hours, clips circulated online, the angry driver humbled by an officer's quiet generosity, the handshake that followed, the judge's gentle wisdom tying it all together. Millions watched. Comments poured in from around the world. "Faith in humanity restored," wrote one viewer. Another said, "That officer is what we need more of." Local news stations picked up the story. They interviewed Daniel outside the garage where he worked. He looked embarrassed at first, but proud. "I learned a lot that day," he said. "I learned that respect goes both ways." The officer, whose name he now knew, Officer Reed, refused to take any special credit. "It was just a light bulb," he said. Anyone could have done it, but everyone knew it was more than a light bulb. It was a spark. Daniel kept his promise. He donated the $45 and then volunteered on weekends at the same charity, fixing brakes and changing oil for single parents who couldn't afford the work. He said it reminded him of how easily small acts can ripple outward. A month later, Judge Caprio invited both men back to court, not for a case, but for a follow-up. The courtroom was packed with people who had seen the video online. Caprio greeted them warmly. "Gentlemen," he said, "you've given the world something it desperately needs, proof that decency still matters." He turned to the audience. "Every once in a while, justice means giving back instead of taking away. And when that happens, everyone wins." Applause filled the room again, louder this time. Daniel glanced at the officer beside him. "You changed the way I see people in uniform," he admitted. Reed shook his head. "You changed the way I see anger. Sometimes folks just need to be heard." The crowd rose to its feet. Phones recorded. Flashes blinked. But for the two men, the noise faded into the background. They were simply two people who had met on opposite sides of a traffic stop and walked away as better versions of themselves. Friends, if this story already moved you even a little, hit subscribe and share it. Because reminders like this, simple, human, unexpected, are what keep the world from hardening completely. Over the next few months, donations to the Auto Care Fund tripled. Letters arrived at the police station from across the country, thanking Officer Reed for reminding them that compassion still exists behind the badge. Mechanics from other states started similar programs, fixing cars for those who couldn't afford it. Daniel's son, a quiet 12-year-old who had once asked why cops always pick on people, now told his classmates, "Some of them fix things even when nobody's watching." It became more than a story. It became a chain reaction of small mercies. Every time Daniel turned on his headlights at night, he saw that new bulb glow red behind him, a soft reminder of what had changed. Not just the light, but the man. We often meet people at their worst, not their best. A traffic stop, a mistake, a burst of anger. It's easy to judge in those moments. But kindness means seeing who someone could be once the storm settles. That officer didn't just fix a taillight. He repaired someone's faith in others. Judge Caprio once said, "Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can turn the harshest critic into a believer." In this courtroom, those words came alive. A bulb worth a few dollars illuminated a truth worth far more. That decency still lives quietly in the hearts of ordinary people. Maybe you've misjudged someone before. Maybe you've spoken in anger, and only later realized the other person was trying to help. It happens to all of us. What matters is what we do after the truth comes to light. So friends, share this video if it restored your faith in humanity. Like it if you believe compassion belongs in every courtroom and everywhere outside it, too. And as the lights fade in the Providence Municipal Courtroom, the final image remains. Two men, once divided by anger, standing side by side. The faint glow of a new taillight shining behind them. Proof that a single act of kindness can light the way for us all.